A little over a year ago, my life hit rock bottom, and the most important person in my life decided that they didn't know if they could be with me any longer. And I had to assess every single area of my life. And I had to figure out how I disconnected from the person that I love the most. So after 12 years, I have decided to come off of TRT, and looking back, it's hard to say if it was a mistake or not, but I definitely know that I made the right decision. And I want to share with you guys my story with testosterone therapy, when I went on it, how long I was on it, and everything that you might be thinking if you're currently on it, if you're wondering if you should go on it, etc. If you want to come off of it, what can you expect? And why I feel that this has been one of the best decisions that I've personally made for myself. It all started in 2011 when I wanted to compete and get my 𝗜𝘂𝘱𝗃 pro card, and I went down to Tampa, Florida. I was working at a powerhouse gym, and it was just full of jack dudes, fit girls, like everyone was in shape. And I quickly found out that there was a hormone that everybody took that was essentially normal, and it was called testosterone replacement therapy. I mean, we all know testosterone, but I didn't realize there was a way to take it that was like normal and that wasn't illegal and that was gym acceptable, and it would only bring my levels to where they should be. And there was a doctor who worked out of the gym who seemed like a really normal guy, very knowledgeable guy, not a weird guy, wasn't like trying to sell anything. And a lot of guys just told me, yeah, if you're interested in getting optimized, go talk to Dr. So-and-so. Sure enough, he said, yeah, come on into the office, get your levels checked, and we'll see where you're at. And I was getting ready for a show, so I decided to get everything checked after my shows. And after the shows, sure enough, my levels were in the toilet. After preparing to get down to 4.8% body fat, double day training, I did that for multiple months. I did get my 𝗜𝘂𝘱𝗃 pro card. He said that you would be a great candidate. I don't know if that's how he worded it, but he essentially said you would definitely benefit from testosterone replacement therapy. The cost wasn't too crazy. I was making really decent money online, so that didn't faze me. But the first concern I had was like, is this something I do short term or like long term? He's like, oh no, you do this for life. You'll stay on this. This is something you'll do forever. And that word forever didn't sit right with me. And I didn't sit there and process it. I just, like most guys do, just made a head decision, didn't make a heart decision, and just jumped into it. And next thing you know, my wife is a nurse, and she knows how to do the injections. So she was doing it weekly for me. And I quickly realized this was a massive inconvenience. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this the rest of my life. And then I travel a lot, and I wasn't fully sure if like going across the border or not, like if I was going to get pulled over, and how do I explain that if they open my suitcase and they see like, syringes and stuff like that. So I never vibed with this lifestyle. It felt secretive, and I didn't tell anybody either. Deep down, I kind of felt like I was doing something wrong. And that was my conscience. I'm not saying that's what you feel or should feel. That's just how I felt. As a guy who preached natural fitness, I think I saw this as kind of a hack, as like a kind of a secret doorway into a world that would give me an edge without actually cheating. And everybody reassured me, we're not taking your levels to super physiological levels. And I never did abuse it. I stayed on the 100 milligrams exactly as a doctor prescribed. But what I noticed when I did go on it, especially in the first 1 or 2 years, is I gained a new identity. Like I did get bigger. I was fuller, I was leaner, I had more energy, I was more decisive, I was stronger, and people noticed. I got more attention. It helped with my YouTube videos. It helped sell programs. And again, deep down, I felt like a fraud. Even though everybody in the industry was saying, well, you're still gonna test normal, your levels aren't like super physiological, you're just where you should be. This is just to help you feel better. So I heard all that. And that's why I kept doing it. I'm like, I'm not cheating anybody, but I also wasn't telling anybody, and that didn't sit right. So I continued on this journey. And one of the things that also made it easier for me to get on was when I saw the doctor, like he was very professional, he wasn't hypey, he wasn't trying to sell me. And he told me what would help optimize the process. And he said, Vince, you're gonna wanna cut out sugar. We're gonna have to start sleeping better. We're gonna have to dial in your nutrition. We're gonna wanna start, training really consistently. Those are all things I was doing, but I was kind of lax in some of those areas. We're gonna wanna really up your water intake. So when you're in a position to take a drug, synthetic hormone, bioidentical hormone, whatever we call it, and you also see like there's an opportunity to dial in all the natural things that are gonna enhance my physique. So I think I saw the compound effect of dialing all these things I already knew needed to be on point, but the drug, the testosterone, gave me extra motivation to pull it all together. And when you start seeing results quickly and you start getting recognized, you start making more money, you start getting more views on your content, I mean, you essentially created a whole new lifestyle. People see you differently, and it was very, very hard to imagine not being on this stuff. And as you start to get on, you start to research it and you start to hear stuff around, oh, your body might start to adapt, and people start telling you may bump the dose up just a little bit and you'll get a little more boost, but like you'll still be natural. And if you want to like harden up a bit, there's these other things like 𝗤𝘂𝗲 and 𝗏𝘂𝗁. And the next thing I know, I'm like learning about drugs. I'm learning about steroids, and I'm like, this is not who I am. And I realized that this rabbit hole could go pretty deep. And I wouldn't say I have addictive behavior, but I definitely started to see how it could become addictive behavior, and it started to scare me. And I started to think, crap, man, I could bump my testosterone up to double per week, and I could take some of these pills that apparently there's all these other things I could take to lessen the effect on my liver, and then this could give me an advantage. I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get here? And I quickly started to realize that this didn't have anything to do with feeling better. And I know that's what a lot of guys hear when they go on testosterone. You hear like guys like Joe Rogan who says it makes you feel better. And it does make you feel better, but you're also dependent now on something artificial to feel better. And what I also found was that while it was making me feel better, like energy levels, I was able to do more in less time. That's a great way to put it for a lot of business people out there. Like, you're more productive. You can make decisions fast. You just got more confidence. You carry yourself differently. I just felt like more of a man, if you will. And you just kind of walk into a room and you quickly realize you're one of the bigger dudes. You command respect. And that does make you feel better. But what really bugged me was, why am I not content with who I am? Why am I trying to measure up to the size of all these other guys who are on it? And a lot of guys openly admit, I take TRT. And why am I not content with how I look, with how I feel? And I realized that TRT was filling a void in my life. And I was using all the health reasons to kind of justify something that was giving me an unfair advantage. Eventually you just kind of like settle in, and, I'm not thinking about this 24/7, but it starts to, become a part of who you are. And I got to a point in my life where I had to ask, do I want to inject needles the rest of my life? I know you could put it in your thigh, you could do creams, and you could do nasal stuff. There's different ways of doing it that, are less inconvenient, like sticking it in your butt. And I just had to ask myself, some simple questions. And, having a son, my son's 8 years old now, and having 2 daughters, I was thinking more along the lines of like my son asking me one day, hey, Dad, I saw some needles in your cupboard, and what is that? Do I need that? And I would say, fuck no, Gianluca. We don't need to take, we're not doing that shit. If that was my immediate visceral response to my son, the person who means the most to me, the boy in my life that means more to me than anybody else on planet Earth, I would tell him something differently. What am I doing? And I started to ask myself, Dad, I want an edge too. Like, I would start to say, no, Gianluca, like, what void are we trying to fill? And again, it would go to an identity conversation. It would, sure, we could check his levels if he was like in an area that he was completely suffering. That's a different conversation. But I'm really kind of talking to the guy that's doing well, and he's not content with who he sees in the mirror, and he feels like he isn't worthy enough, and that he can't achieve his goals in life unless he adds this thing to his life. And that was the thing that bothered me. So I had to ask myself, my son's 8. Do I want to tell him when he's 16, 25? Like, guys are going on TRT like in their mid-20s now, like 400 milligrams, 500 milligrams. And it's like, it's insane what we've accepted is to be acceptable. A little over a year ago, my life hit rock bottom. And the most important person in my life decided that they didn't know if they could be with me any longer. And I had to assess every single area of my life. And I had to figure out how I disconnected from the person that I love the most. And how I created this life that was built around external validation, money, fame, success. And I had to start looking at everything in my life that had led to this drive and this ability to produce more that I was unable to manage. And sure, you could say, well, Vince, just manage it better. And I had to assess one of the things that led me to this place of disconnection from my head and my heart and from living from a place of authenticity and being who I really am. And Vince Del Monte is not a drug guy. I didn't grow up with drugs. I didn't grow up with steroids. I didn't grow up in that culture. Going on TRT was not who I am. I grew up in an Italian home. None of the guys went on. I go, well, but Vince, the times are different. The food is different. The call this toxins. I get it. I've heard it all. I get it. But that's not who I am. And a lot of people kind of get into this lifestyle that's not truly who they are. And I realized that's what got me into trouble with my business. And pursuing more, sell. I was not authentic with who I was. I didn't love who I was. I didn't respect who I was. Respect is listening to yourself. I wanted to fit in. I wanted more. And because those were the reasons for me, that I knew that TRT was something that I entertained and accepted into my life, I had to assess it and say, you know what? I want to live from a place of authenticity, from a place of sincerity, from a place of looking in the mirror and actually knowing that I own my body. I never liked the concept of renting your body. And that's the way I see it. I'm not saying that's the way you have to see it, but I always felt like I didn't own my body. It was on lease to me because once I come off this drug, my levels are going to drop and I'm not going to have the same level of muscularity. I'm not going to be as lean. I'm not going to be as strong. My energy might drop. What's interesting is my energy level is better than ever right now. So that's a big myth. But I was afraid to lose things that I gained artificially and from a substance that I was injecting into my body. And it was a shortcut, right? And I wasn't willing to put in the work, the extra work to try and get my levels. I just thought, hey, this is an easier way to get an outcome that's gonna kind of prevent the harder work of actually figuring out why don't I like myself, right? That's what I mean by the harder work. I don't mean by just sleeping more, drinking more water, getting your macros even more dialed, having even a better training program. I'm like, why don't I like myself? That was the work. And I decided to come off TRT a couple months ago, and obviously I'm not as big and beefy and thick and all that, but I like who I see in the mirror more than ever. Especially, I love the concept of owning my body. And I feel good knowing that if one day my son says, hey, Dad, all my friends are going on this thing called testosterone therapy. Should I do it? I'll tell him honestly, your dad was on it for 12 years. And here's what I learned. And I just going to have a real conversation. So a big part of my reinvention and living this authentic life and being able to feel and process and be present and not functioning from crazy, frantic energy has been removing the substance. And there's been other substances that have come off as well, which I'll talk about in other videos. But this was the first one. And this was really hard for me to come off of because I serve fitness professionals and there's kind of a look that you want to bring to the stage and to show up with. And I'm like, I'm not as big, but you know what? I'm determined to rebuild from the foundation that I currently have. And that's what gets me excited most. So I believe that this is a decision every man needs to make. And I hope I just got you thinking about things. If you are thinking about what I'm thinking, you are not the only one. You are not alone. A lot of guys have these feelings inside them, and it's something you want to process. I'd be happy to continue this conversation below in the chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts on TRT. Let me know in the comments below. Are you on it? Thinking about going on it? Just tell me your story, your experience. Let's get a good conversation going below. If you're new to this channel, subscribe now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any more videos. If you're not new here, thank you again. Smash that like button and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.